All right, what a great interview with Tina Descovich. She is the co-founder and executive director at Moms for Liberty, an incredible organization that has flourished, grown nationwide in just the last several years. Very impressive what they've been able to do. They fight for parental rights. If you have kids or grandkids, they are at the very grassroots level of school boards and all the way up, right, even into the state and federal levels, where they fight against government overreach and the woke madness that is encroaching in on our schools and in our families. Tina is a member of the church and a very impressive individual who has a lot to say about these issues. I think you're really going to enjoy this interview. This episode is brought to you by Go and Do Travel. I'm the official spokesman for Go and Do Travel and the Journey of Wisdom cruise. Love this cruise. It's on 3 different continents. We go to beautiful places in Greece, Turkey, Cairo, Egypt, where you'll see the pyramids, while you learn about the teachings of Paul and John and Abraham and Joseph of Egypt and Moses. This is on September 12th to the 24th this year, 2025, coming up this fall. Would love to see you there. Go to cwicmedia.com. Up at the top, hit trips and events, and then scroll down to Journey of Wisdom. Here we go. All right, welcome to Cwic Show. My name is Greg Mattson, and I am your host. In this episode, we have brought on Tina Descovich, the co-founder and current executive director of Moms for Liberty. Tina, welcome to the show.
It's great to be here with you, Greg.
I'm very excited about this. This is a topic that we cover quite a bit, and that is rolling into the subject of parenting and parental rights versus state rights. This is what your organization works on and deals with. And so I really want to talk about this and get an idea of where you think things are going. Now, there's been an administrative change here in our political situation this year. Are we moving forward? Are we moving backwards? Where do parental rights sit currently?
We're definitely moving forward. So I served on a school board here in Florida from 2016 to 2020. And that's what kind of led to the launch of Moms for Liberty. Is my co-founder and I, she also was serving on a school board in another part of the state here in Florida. But what we saw were parental rights being stepped on, and by the time 2020 happened, they were being trampled on. And so we started Moms for Liberty so parents could organize and be effective in their advocacy work, defending and protecting parental rights for obvious reasons, I think, to anyone that's a parent. But, once we lose our right to raise our children, and the government has inserted itself in our family, our family unit is done. And that's a real problem. I think a lot of people we're starting to catch on to that in 2020 and 2021. And so the parental rights movement from that time period to now, it's astounding to watch that the people that have woken up and gotten engaged, we have gotten in the last 3 years, 55 bills signed into law in 18 different states. And so protecting parental rights or improving education. So the movement is definitely in the right direction.
Okay, so the movement is the right direction. First of all, how did we get here, though? Why are we in this position at this point? Why is there such a need for an organization like yours?
So I think you can look at it from a few different angles, and there's a few different reasons we've gotten here. A very simple reason is parents have abdicated their responsibilities with their children, and our organization doesn't necessarily call out parents enough, I think. And from working or serving on a school board and working in a school district for a number of years and volunteering for a bazillion years when my kids were younger, I saw parents abdicating their responsibility. I live in a pretty affluent area, but I volunteered in the front office, and one day a kid got dropped off with no shoes. So, the front office clerk has to run down to Walmart with the closest store and grab the kid some shoes. And so when parents don't do their job, schools have to pick up where the parents are falling down. And so that's at the highest, that's like the most altruistic reason I think it's happening. But obviously there is evil at work. And the goal of some organizations, some people, and ultimately the darkness in the world is to divide families and to destroy families and, disrupt God's plan. And so you can look at it from that aspect too, and watch over decades how the family is being attacked and disintegrated. And the easiest way to do that is to take away parental authority to raise their children.
So parents are abdicating their responsibility to bring up their kids. I'm going to keep going down that path a little bit. Why? What has happened? What has changed? What are the cultural differences that have come up that have caused parents to begin to do this? Is it an issue of pride? Is it an issue of culture? Is it family structure? What's going on?
It's a great question. I don't know that I necessarily have the answer to why parents would abdicate their responsibility, except some people, when other people will do the job for them, take the opportunity to let other people do the job for them. And that is an unfortunate situation happening historically across America the last decade or so. More and more of that is happening. And we have to work as communities to strengthen one another and support one another. And parenting is hard. And once you go through a divorce and you're a single parent, parenting gets even harder. And so with the divorce rates going up, parents have to focus on funding their family, working and raising their family, and they leave their kids to the schools.
So I'm going to ask a hard question here, that something that is being talked about a little bit more here on my show anyway, and that is, what about the family structure? I mean, when I was a kid and I was going to elementary school, at least a young kid, well, almost all throughout elementary school, my mom was a stay-at-home single mom. So even back then, the idea back then was, okay, well, my parents split apart. They were both really good people, couldn't live with each other. And they both decided that my dad was going to support his family, his new wife and their kids, and his ex-wife and her kids, all being his kids. And she was going to stay home until the youngest kid was at least in elementary school, right? So for 5 years. And my mom went to PTA meetings, right? She was involved in the school and volunteering. That's a lot tougher thing in America today, where most households have two different incomes, and many of them feel they need to have two incomes. Doesn't that make a big difference?
Yeah, it makes a huge difference. And kudos to your parents for being able to work that out. I can't think of anyone I know at all that has an arrangement like that, where after a divorce, the husband is willing. I mean, sometimes they're forced to by court orders or such to pay alimony or child support. That often still isn't enough in today's economy. But someone that's actually willing to still support his ex-wife so that she can be home to raise the children is amazing. I have been a working mom most of my life. I have been a stay-at-home mom at times too. And even as a working mom, you can put your children first. It's a hard balance. It's not as easy. My years home with my babies were, so important. And it was lovely and wonderful to be able to focus my energy on them. But even the years where I worked, there's always, you have to pick and choose good, better, best, as we're taught. And so best is always your children or your family, your spouse, your family, your children. And so I don't think I'm shocked at your story about your parents. I've never heard anybody doing something that well. But think about it, like putting kids first is what we should be doing. I think in America, especially since 2020 and in 2020, we were putting kids last. In education, we put kids last. We put the teachers' unions first and the teachers' needs first. And parents are becoming selfish and putting their needs first and going through divorces and putting their financial needs first and putting the kids, it's just, there's so much of that happening today. And really what it comes down to is not putting children first.
So you said that the parental movement, let's say the parental rights movement has gotten more steam in the last number of years. How much did COVID add to that? Because one thing I did, when I was talking about BYU, you're a member of the church. I was talking about BYU, calling out what was going on there. One of the ways I found out, outside of some direct messaging, but was I actually went on and I looked at all of their Zoom classes that were broadcast and put onto their channel. And they were showing everything that was happening. The things that were actually being taught by some of these professors was unbelievable. And so I put it out there and started calling them out on it. Was part of this kind of that transparency where kids are at home and they're getting their classes online and the parents are like, what is this?
100%. So my co-founder and I like to say, when we served on school board, we saw behind the education curtain, and then COVID happened and all of America, all the parents saw behind the education curtain. You saw what was being taught or the lack of what was being taught to your children. You saw that school boards did not want you there as much as teachers and schools were saying, oh, parents, your involvement is vital to the success of your students, when parents really wanted to start getting involved, the answer was no. Your mic was shut off, the doors were locked. We have stories of parents that we have a story in California where a sitting elected school board member, the school board did not like his opinions and views. And so they just wouldn't send him the link for the meetings once they moved to Zoom. So, what the tyranny that we saw happen during COVID, was at every level. But what we saw happening in schools woke up parents across the country and absolutely fueled the parents' rights movement.
Yeah, I went, I also once, this was a few years ago, I went through in the state of California. I started reading all of the curriculum for the states. I mean, the most boring thing you can imagine. But what you end up finding in there is it's incredible what they actually have. It's not just a rogue teacher here and there. It's actually what's in the state curriculum. And I went through California as an example, read 1,300 pages on their curriculum. And saw all of this advocacy for activism, for DEI programs, they'd have things like gathering together and learning certain chants that were all part of the curriculum. It was crazy, and it just got worse as you went up in the grades. Right, a little bit in elementary school, you get to junior high and high school, and then it's just Pandora's box has been opened. Is that kind of on your end with the organizations which you work on a little bit? Is at the state level, going through policy, going through law to make sure that this curriculum and agenda cannot continue to push forward?
So Moms for Liberty is organized at the local level. So we're organized by county. There's 3,000 counties in the United States. We have about 320 chapters right now. And we fight at all levels of government. Our mission statement is to save America by unifying, educating, and empowering parents to defend their parental rights at all levels of government. And we start at the school board level because that is where most of the infractions are happening. But since our launch in 2021, we're just 4.5 years old, we have moved into state advocacy. And so our chapters then all form these legislative committees. Each person gets a vote, and they put together a legislative agenda, and that's how we've gotten those 55 bills in 18 states across finish lines. But we start at that most local level. And for example, one of our chapters in Tennessee, our Williamson County chapter, right out of the gate when they launched, they spent over 1,000 hours reviewing the K-5 language arts curriculum. And it's kind of what you were saying. They started highlighting where they had concerns. And then, they mapped it out on the walls in the room. And what they saw, with the trend that they saw, where something made you feel like, oh, this isn't the greatest thing for my child to be learning. It feels a little weird, but it's not that big of a deal. But when you looked at it in conjunction from what they learned in kindergarten and how it was built on, and this is language arts. They're supposed to be learning English and grammar and things of that nature. But what was happening in the Wit and Wisdom curriculum there in Tennessee was in kindergarten, they were teaching them about how seahorses, how the men carry the baby, and how they were using animals and things to start blurring the lines in gender and in sex. And so, our chapter pointed it out, and they got made fun of terribly, like, oh, you're afraid of seahorses. They went after them like crazy. But the point was not that kindergarten lesson, but when you watched what they built on, by the time 5th grade happened, the sexes were completely blurred. And I actually had a conversation with somebody at the U.S. Department of Education who used to be a state secretary of education just a few weeks ago. And she said she called the creator of that curriculum during that time period and straight asked her, like, is your purpose here to blend and blur the lines between genders? Is that what you guys are actually doing? And she admitted it. She said, yes, they don't even hide behind what they're trying to do. And so parents have to actually read every word in these books. This is K-5 language arts curriculum that's trying to blur genders. So what else are they infusing? All types of things. That same set of curriculum in 2nd grade had a whole 9-week section on that was basically critical race theory. It was dividing kids by race and teaching them one was oppressed and one was an oppressor. And that led to a child going home to their mom, a mixed race child, saying he hated his white half of his body, which obviously he doesn't have a white half and a black half, but he hated that he had white in him after 9 weeks of that lesson. And so the curriculum out there across the country, all over the place, is doing great damage, but parents have to be awake and they have to do their duty to look at those, at all of the books.
When I was, we're from California and love California, and what was this, 2001? I had as my first grade teacher a teacher that was in her very first year of teaching. And then when we returned to California much later, my daughter had that same teacher in her last year of teaching in kindergarten. And so we kind of knew her a little bit. My wife and her became kind of friends. She was older, but she called one day. She called my wife and she said, "Look, there is a story and some work that we're going to do. This is a kindergarten class that is going to be about two princes that are in love and live in the same palace, and kind of pushing this whole agenda. Brought her very numerous other examples of how this can work for girls and etc. Right." That was the last straw for my wife. That was it. I mean, as soon as that was put in, because we'd had other issues already, we were gone 6 months later and moved to Arizona. But that curriculum fight is really difficult because it's not just, you have the state, you've got the districts, and you've got the teachers unions that are all pushing for this, in many cases, a unanimous agenda that is inserting this information into our kids. And many times kids don't even know it. When I was growing up, maybe when you were growing up, you had to send home a permission slip for these types of things. And now usually you've got, there's no notification whatsoever for the parents of this happening. This teacher could have lost her job if people knew she called my mom. Is there anything that's being worked on that at all? Why are we in a position where teachers are given that type of license to cover those type of topics without sending home a permission slip for a 5 and 6 year old kid?
It's infused in the curriculum at the state level, like you said, at the local, county, and school district levels. There's a lot of different things. There's a social emotional learning curriculum, which is a whole ball of a beast that we could talk about for hours on its own. And then there's everything else. There's the English curriculum, even math word problems have this stuff infused in it. It's really going to take every parent on alert. President Trump has signed some executive orders recently that help with some of the racial disparity, or the racial discrimination that you're seeing in some of these lessons and some of these topics. But not everything has been addressed yet. And if you want to dig into like comprehensive sex ed, for example, whole states have approved that. And oh gosh, I just actually got back from Poland a couple weeks ago. They flew me over there because they're about to get comprehensive sex ed in their country. And they
Did you say Poland?
Yeah, they're a devoutly.
Wow, if Poland takes it in, then we're all in trouble.
Yeah, they're a devoutly Catholic country, and they have a new radical ed minister who's September 1st, they're getting comprehensive sex ed. And if your viewers are like, oh, sex ed, it's a film strip, beep, and it's the the boy and the girl parts. No, that's not comprehensive sex ed. Comprehensive sex ed starts teaching children in kindergarten that they can be a boy or a girl, neither or both. It teaches about all types of sex, natural and unnatural, teaches about abortion by 5th grade. It's really it's not okay by most parents' standards. And so whole states are adopting comprehensive sex ed. Whole countries are adopting it because it's coming out of, and I don't know how deep you want to get into this, but it's coming from the International Planned Parenthood Federation. And through them, they're pushing it into the United Nations, UNESCO, the WHO. And so globally, these things are happening. Last year, I was in London with a group, and there was a guy there from Kenya, I think. And he said, in a village in his country, a little remote village, they were teaching gender ideology to their 6 and 7 year olds. And so it's a global problem because there are people with agendas that are trying to drive it globally.
Yeah, I did some work with the UN, for an organization that worked with the UN back in early 2000s. And so I had read through a lot of what the UN was doing, and especially in Africa, in fact. And it was already difficult back then. But what is changed with the UN, which is really interesting, is that it used to be that the UN would try and export its stuff, mostly from Europe, into the United States and elsewhere. And the vernacular and everything else was from Europe. And now I've gone through this again. I'm back with that organization. I'm working with them a little bit. And I've gone through again and looked at that in the last 12 months in what's going on. It's our language. It's the United States language. It's the United States agenda and they're taking it and we're exporting it. We're the exporters of this garbage out to the United Nations that then is trying to spread it all around. And Africa they're such in such a vulnerable position because they need as much assistance as they can get from organizations like the United Nations. And they're going to accept it. And usually it comes with a caveat of, well, we're going to insert this here with this program and with this money. And I studied this. I've studied this stuff for 12 years, and I could go down and underline all of the sentences and information that is very, very religion of academia type of stuff that is exported from the U.S. and not from the Europeans. That's not really in your realm, I suppose, of what you're working on, but it is a big change on United States being front and forward with the United Nations on indoctrinating kids around the world.
It actually is. It ties in exactly because the roots of it come from the United States, and you can go back to 1950 with Dr. Alfred Kinsey. I don't know how much your people really or you want to dig into the disgusting history there, but that's where all this starts from. And you can trace it back to right here in the United States to his studies and research that he did on infants and toddlers, which if anybody wants to look that up and read about it, it's unacceptable, it's despicable, it's disgusting, it's a crime. But there are people in the United States, including the International Planned Parenthood Foundation, Federation, which is Planned Parenthood as we know it here in the United States. They praise his work and what he has done and how that can blend gender and sexuality. And it is, I don't know, I'll tell you, when I read Dr. Kinsey's book a few years ago for the first time, because I didn't really believe it, because, you see clips on the internet and you're not really sure what to believe and what not to believe. So I ordered an original copy from an old bookstore of both his sexuality in men and women. And I honestly laid in bed for about 3 days with a migraine after that, because I was physically ill from reading the study and the research that man did. And it has led directly to what we're seeing. I don't know if you've ever seen the Genderbread Person. It used to be like genderbreadperson.com. It's in schools all over the country. It's what they're using to teach children that they can be a boy or a girl or neither or both, and that gender is different than sex. They used to say on the front page of their website, like, our research to prove all of this is we get it from Dr. Alfred Kinsey. That's where I first learned about him. I had never heard about him until I went to their website after someone had sent me the Genderbread Person, probably in 2020. And so I went to their website and I was like, who's this Dr. Alfred Kinsey? And I went down that hole. And now we know it's right here in the United States of America. It is our fault. We are the ones that are behind this, that have allowed this, that are celebrating it on so many levels. And it's really heartbreaking.
Well, by the way, the Genderbread Person is taught at BYU, or has been taught at BYU. I've got video and audio and et cetera of that being taught. Understanding the origins of these things. What's really interesting, Tina, is that there are, you think that most people are good people. And so, if you're good parents, right, and they think about this, and like your experience with Dr. Kinsey, it's like they don't believe that people are actually like this. They don't actually say, well, this isn't that bad. It can't be that bad. But at the core of what actually the sourcing of these things and these ideas, the sourcing of the indoctrination, they are from people that they are horrific. There are horrific people. And they have, I have learned so much in the last 13 years because it's these philosophers and experimenters and academics and those that are involved with these things. A handful of people have an immense amount of influence on how our culture works. And I never used to believe that. I didn't think that could possibly be true. But the DNA is all there. You run back through postmodernism, you run through Marxism. All of them are about throwing off the shackles of sexuality or the limits of a sexual order. They're all the same. These few individuals change the world. And it's kind of an invitation, I think, for us to say, hey, a few individuals can change the world and can make it, going the other way.
We absolutely believe that at Moms for Liberty, and that's what we're doing. And so we started 4.5 years ago with 2 chapters here in Florida, my co-founder and myself. Got 2 moms that were in each of our communities to start the first 2 chapters. We met in January of 2021, and moms are changing. They're changing what is happening. They're fighting the direction. I would say the stuff going on in the White House right now is a direct result of the work that our organization has done. We have grown in the last 4.5 years to 48 states. I will say, since many of your listeners are probably LDS, we are missing 2 states. And one of them is Utah. No one in Utah has started a chapter, and Vermont is the second state. We have 300 and almost 40 chapters now. We have 130,000 active moms on the ground. I already told you about the bills. We've won 450 school board seats, trying to take our school boards back. We have 18 more today right now, that we'll find out about probably by the time this airs, in Wisconsin that we've endorsed in. And we just keep fighting and we keep going. We have been at the White House for many bill signings for the past 2 months with President Trump, because these are issues that he knows and the administration knows that we are clawing at to fight in this country and what's happening. The thing is though, he's writing these executive orders, but our parents are still turning up every single day across the country, violations of it. School boards that are voting vocally out front saying they're going to violate the executive orders. They're violating state laws. We have governors like Gavin Newsom in California who has stood to say he's going to violate the executive orders. And so now we have Congress trying to write bills to protect children, to protect our culture, to protect America. And I hope people will wake up and get engaged.
You know, when I was reading that curriculum in certain states, Utah was one of the worst. And in my opinion, right, when I went through and I had read the curriculum in Utah, I think I had 3, Utah, Illinois, and California, I thought were the worst ones. I thought I probably read a couple dozen of these states' curriculum. And I don't know why Utah, a place like Utah, would be in a position that they're in. The funding that goes in there, even for the politicians, I know comes from very interesting places. I know Governor Cox has made a big change on a number of different things. Hopefully that's a positive and it's not a charade. But I mean, the NEA, which is one of the biggest cults in America, was the biggest funder for Governor Cox in his first term.
Oh boy!
People don't realize that they were the biggest donor in Governor Cox's run in whatever that was for his first term. I did an episode on that because I went back and I looked at all the public information. I'm like, what in the world? And sure enough, he signs the DEI stuff. He's talking about his pronouns to kids on broadcasts. Now he's made a 180. It looks like, I don't know. Maybe he sees the writing on the wall for his political future, but yeah, if you're in Utah, you maybe consider Moms for Liberty, because you should take a look at what your curriculum says. It's not good.
I did not know that about the NEA being his biggest donor. The 99.9% or 99.8% of their donations go to Democrats. So that is fascinating information that he slipped in, and that 0.01%.
Yeah, what is the NEA donating to Governor Cox in his run? What backroom deal was made on this?
The NEA is an awful entity. They have come after parents. They colluded with the White House. You know, public records requests are all coming out now and showing their collusion with the Biden administration in targeting parents as domestic terrorists, as putting threat tags on us, as having the FBI investigate us for showing up for meetings. And so I have no love for the NEA. I think they are a corrupt, horrible organization. If you look at their agendas, just their summary that they have, you know, it's all public information, especially in 2021, 2022. Hasn't gotten much better, but in those years, that's when I first started paying attention and looking. There was nothing to do with education on their national conventions in the summer. They were taking stands on Israel and an abortion and everything and anything, but nothing to do with reading, writing. And let's just, I could go on this one about the teachers union for a very long time, but let's talk about school closures. The LA teachers union during COVID, I think they were going on 2 years of being closed, and they came out publicly and said, until you defund the police in Los Angeles, we're not going to have schools back open. And children were suffering. And I have no respect for them at all. They are a horrible entity.
Well, and what we're doing, funding through taxes, state organizations, you may have, I see those as two different animals, private and state, and federal. And I don't understand government unions. I don't understand how we can put money from everyone's pockets. My mom was a school teacher her whole life. And she ended up donating to who knows how many political causes because of her paycheck. I don't understand that. But the NEA is a cult. It is unbelievable. If anybody wants to go look at it, just look at their annual conventions. Watch their annual conventions on YouTube, and you will be horrified at what you see. It is unbelievable behavior. Now, what is going on currently with the trans issues? Are we making headway on this with boys playing in girls' sports, boys being in girls' locker rooms and bathrooms?
Yes, of course, we're making a lot of headway. President Trump again signed an executive order. I was able to be there at the White House for that, to keep boys out of women's sports. So, but as we just discussed, states and local school districts are defying that every day. But there's a lot of other things in place. So Moms for Liberty, we joined Young Americans Foundation and 3 states, Utah being one of them, to sue the Biden administration over the Title IX rewrite. So they took Title IX, which came out in the 70s, I believe, and which allowed for girls' sports, allowed girls to have their own private spaces, locker rooms, restrooms, that of that nature in schools. And the Biden administration last year or year before last rewrote Title IX to go into effect in 2024 to include gender identity as a protected class, which basically means that boys can be in girls' bathrooms and girls' sports and girls' locker rooms. And we sued the Biden administration and we won a federal injunction. It was remarkable. It's not what we thought the judge would give us, but that still stands today, that federal injunction. And what it says is that if you are a member of Moms for Liberty, the public school that your child goes to is exempt from implementing the Title IX rewrite. And so that made our membership grow like crazy across the country, of course. Thank you so much, President Biden, for that gift. So, the fight still goes on. It still continues, but it is happening and getting exposed at every level. It is polling at 85% of Americans do not want boys in girls' sports or girls' bathrooms or girls' locker rooms. So it's, the Democrats are holding strong to that and defending it. And I just absolutely don't know why. If they've done any polling on it, they know they need to really back off if they ever want to win an election again. What is happening with Planned Parenthood today? Oof. Where are we at with that? Because there's a lot of legislation going on there and a lot of expose that has happened there. Where are we at? Well, I can tell you this. They've started endorsing school board candidates across the country. Pennsylvania has all of their school board races in odd years. So this is a big year for Pennsylvania for school board races. And Planned Parenthood is coming out left and right with candidates. And so I want all of your viewers to take a second and just ask themselves, why in the world does Planned Parenthood care about endorsing in a school board race and who's sitting on a school board? Just let that set for a second and think about that. Yeah. Again, going back to it, there is evil in the world. You've got to realize it. There is evil in the world, and it does permeate things to your home and your family and et cetera. Speaking of that, do you guys work at all with like social media and the access that is given to kids through social media? We have some bills in some states right now that are chapters. We fight at the most local level. And so we don't take issues at the national level and tell our chapters how to support in their states or at their school districts. We support them in what they want to fight for. And so I have seen on quite a few of our legislative agendas across the country, states, so chapters and then states that have decided that they would like to stand with or fight for social media guidelines put in at the state level to protect children. Yeah, because again, the access to children is wide open like it's never been before. And it's not just the teachers and it's not just the administrators. It's what are they getting on their phone and who's pushing that? There are, speaking of SEL is also partnered up with some app companies. I've seen this. This has been a while since I looked at it, maybe 6-9 months, but they've partnered up with some app companies that are trying to sell themselves to school districts, so that the kids have the app on their phone, and it's all under SEL and therapeutic type of counseling. Counseling would be the right word with schools, counseling and healthcare. And so it's like, how do you feel today?
and how are things going today, and what did someone say that upset you, perhaps. And anyway, all this data is collected in these apps and brought back together so that new programs can be put into place. And there is data backing it up that show how kids are being affected. And it's this whole industry that is kind of encircling the kids, with the parents on the outside of that circle. It's really scary. I mean, this was in Utah also, by the way. This was in Utah that they were looking at bringing in these apps to help them in their counseling, and it would have a message for them every day. It would have a new message about how important they are, and et cetera, to give them a little shot in the arm, a little B12 shot of self-esteem.
All I hear is Utah needs a Moms for Liberty chapter. But really, you brought up a whole nother, every one of these topics you keep bringing up, I feel like we could dig into for hours at a time, and the data mining of our children. And if you have an app on your phone right now, a social emotional learning app, your child has that on their phone, delete it. I don't even know much about them, but I can tell you delete it. Imagine that someone somewhere now has information on how your child is feeling every day. Imagine how that can be used against your child as they go apply for jobs or try to go in the military or try to do different things when they become 18 and 19. It's not protected. If they are putting that kind of information into a system, that data is being collected and used, and it's being used to target them. It's being used to target them with the message for the next day. And if that gets in the wrong hands, imagine how they can target them and how they can manipulate their minds. It is delete it now.
Yeah. Finishing up here, Tina.
Can you ask me something happy, please? I feel like I'm so angry and intense in this whole interview. Can we talk about anything?
Okay. What is the outlook? What is your outlook on this, and what is your hope?
Yes, I am very hopeful. Our future is bright. That is the theme for our summit that we're going to have this fall. Our future is bright. And thank you. That is a great question. Parents are waking up. They are organizing, not just with our organization, but there's parental rights organizations across the country, and parents are getting involved, and they're upset, and they're showing up at their school board meetings. They are voting, which is more important than anything. We targeted in 4 key states over 200,000 voters that hadn't really voted in prior years on this last election, and we were able to activate 92% of them on our issues only. We never even said vote for a certain candidate. We just said get out and vote today, because there's a boy in your daughter's bathroom, at the school at the end of the street, using actual stories of things that were happening in their community. Parents don't, when they learn, they take action. And so I just plead with everyone to take action, be involved, stay civically engaged, do your job with screening what your children are learning. We are thankful for our school system. I, went through a public school system. My children did. I've got a junior in high school right now at the same high school I went to. But we've got to do your part. You can't just trust that other individuals have their best interests all the time. So very hopeful. We've got President Trump in office who is signing executive orders. We've got Congress now creating bills to take apart the Department of Education, which we didn't even get to. We could talk about that all day long too, and how it's a good thing to return education back to the states. And so I just, thank you. Thank you for having me on. I'm so excited about the future of where education is going in America, because it can only go up.
It can only go up. It's gone down since 1979, but for a very good reason, I think. So Utah, if you are watching this, which I know you are, look into Moms for Liberty and see if there's something. If you're a go-getter and someone who wants to initiate something and get involved, contact Moms for Liberty and see what you guys could get done there. Tina, yes?
Oh, and we have dads that are chapter chairs. We probably should put that in. We only have 5 out of our 340 or whatever, but we do have dads that have stepped up to be Moms for Liberty chairs and vice chairs and treasurers and secretaries. And so we take moms, dads, aunts, uncles, grandparents, you name it.
Awesome. Appreciate that. Well, we'll put a link to your website in the description box. Thanks, Tina, so much. Maybe we can get you back another time.
Thanks. It's been a great conversation.
Appreciate it.